All right, listen, here's the deal. When I was in high school, I genuinely loved math class, and it had nothing to do with the math. All right, I just so happened to sit next to the best note takers in the classroom. So whenever we had a test coming up, I would just lean over and I'd tap one of them on the shoulder and I'd say, hey, do you mind if I take a look at your notes? And this got me through 4 years of high school math, okay? Every single time, I just lived off of their notes. I took advantage of their hard work, and this got me through school. It worked out so well, but here was the problem. I began a habit. I started to live according to the bare minimum. I started to do just enough, just what it took in order to get by. Now, here's the thing. When you're doing this in math class, it's not that big of a deal, but suddenly it became a habit in my life. And I started to live this way, and I started to grow up, and I never became spectacular at anything because I thought I was being smart, right? The least amount of work to get the greatest return. Turns out I was just being lazy. And so my life, when I began to look around, I started to realize something. I was ordinary. Everything I did, everything I achieved, it was all so ordinary because I lived on the bare minimum. Now, here's what I want you to hear. Living on the bare minimum leads to an ordinary life. And here's the problem. Jesus didn't call us to be ordinary. In fact, there's a moment in Scripture, there's a moment when Jesus is looking at his disciples, he's talking to them, and he says, listen, guys, I need you to step up. I need you to do more. I need you to get out there and to stop playing it safe. You need to take more risks. And this is what he says. He looks at them in Luke chapter 6, 32 through 35. He says this, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even pagans love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even pagans do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect full repayment, what credit is that to you? Even pagans lend to pagans, expecting to be repaid in full. Now, before I finish what Jesus says, let me say this. He's making a pretty tough point here. He's looking at his disciples. He's looking at you and me. He's saying, listen, everything you're doing, it's ordinary. So you love those who love you. Guess what? Everyone does that. That's ordinary. Oh, so you're nice to those who are nice to you. Guess what? Everyone does that. That's ordinary. Oh, so you'll give money to the people who can afford to give it right back? Guess what? Everyone does that. That's ordinary. I haven't called you to live an ordinary life. Now, the next thing Jesus says, this is the one I need you to hear because he calls you to so much more than ordinary. He calls you to go way above and beyond. He says, but you, my disciples, you are to love those who hate you. Do good to those who do bad to you. Lend your time, your money, your resources to those who can never even dream of paying you back. This is what Jesus says. What credit is it to you to love those who love you? I've called you to love those who hate you. I've called you for the extra credit. What credit is it to you to be nice to those who are nice to you? I've called you to do good to those who are awful to you. I've called you to the extra credit. Oh, you give your money to those who can give it right back? What credit is that to you? I've called you to give to those who can never give it back. I've called you to the extra credit. Jesus looks at the ordinary life and he says, yeah, that's nice and all, but guess what? That's not you. You're not ordinary. I have made you extraordinary. Jesus calls us to the extra. Now, let me tell you something. There are a lot of us who've gotten way too comfortable living on the bare minimum. We're living the ordinary life. We're doing the bare minimum as mothers and fathers, the bare minimum as husbands and wives. We're doing the bare minimum as friends, as bosses, as employees. We're even doing the bare minimum when it comes to our faith. And here's the problem. So many of us are living bored, dissatisfied, disappointing lives. And here's the deal. There's a reason. Because when you met Jesus, the moment he changed your life, he called you to so much more than ordinary. He called you to the extra. You'll never be satisfied with the ordinary again. You'll never be satisfied living the bare minimum because Jesus has made you extraordinary. Now, one of my life mottos, it became strive for the extra. Because I knew that if I wasn't defying expectations, if I wasn't going above and beyond what people expected of me, then I wasn't rising to the call that God had placed on my life. So I'm not satisfied anymore. I'm not satisfied having an ordinary marriage. I don't want to be an ordinary father. I don't want to work an ordinary job. I'm not okay with ordinary. I will strive for the extra because Jesus has made me extraordinary. Now look, we've all been called to the unexpected. We've all been called to go above and beyond. We've been called to the extra. So let me leave you with this evening. What the extraordinary does, the ordinary follows. What the extraordinary does, the ordinary follows. If you choose to be extraordinary in your home, your family will follow you. If you choose to be extraordinary in the way you live your life, your whole life will defy expectations. And we here at this church, if we choose to be extraordinary in all that we do, we will lead this church to be extraordinary too. If we choose to go above and beyond and to give more than is expected of us, if we do the unexpected, then our church will rise to the occasion. We will lead this church to love those who don't deserve it. We will lead this church to be good to those who have only ever been bad to us. And we will lead this church to give our time, our money, our resources to those who can't even dream of paying it back. We will be extraordinary. So the final thing I want to say to you, the final thing I need you to hear, Jesus didn't call you to be ordinary. He didn't call you to do the bare minimum. He didn't call you to do what was comfortable, what was easy, what was expected. So don't settle. Don't settle for the ordinary. Live your life striving for the extra, because you, my friend, you are extraordinary.